Okay.
So we're in front of Mr. Lincoln's cabin.
We're in front of Mr. Lincoln's cabin, and of course we start the story not in Kentucky where he was born, but here in Indiana, when he's coming to age to read.
Ah, yes.
And see, he has one of his favorite books from childhood, Aesop's Fables. Now, we know that even though you're not supposed to, people are going to touch, and
Yes.
you can, as you can see, this feels like real skin.
Can I touch it?
Go ahead.
It does. Is it wax?
It's silicone latex.
Oh, my.
The importance of this scene is to show how Lincoln, even though he grew up in the frontier of southern Indiana, his father was a subsistence farmer who supplemented his income by carpentry, that, as Lincoln liked to joke, his father taught him to work hard but not to like it. And so books for him were not only a source for self-education, but also, as you'll see when we get inside, this means of escape kind of into his own dream world and adventure world. The cabin itself is a bit bigger than a normal cabin, and part of that is to facilitate our visitor traffic,
Yeah.
wheelchairs and the like, but it still gives you a sense of how cramped the quarters were for 8 people
Yes.
to share this small space. Now when we get in, you'll notice that everyone's asleep, except for Lincoln. And again, we're not trying to create a romantic scene, but we know that when the only time that Lincoln had to himself to kind of explore the books was when everyone else was asleep. This was time he had to himself.
Sure.
And so he's by the fireplace, and even his dog Joe is asleep at his feet. But you'll see, again, the importance of books, and also kind of how Lincoln's aspirations were different than his father's. He wanted something more out of life. We leave the cabin, and you'll notice a figure of a young Lincoln on a flatboat. You also notice an illusion of the water reflecting up. Lincoln, in 1828, he took a flatboat of goods down to New Orleans. New Orleans was a major city where goods were taken from Indiana and sold. It was a great adventure for him. Lincoln would often ferry businessmen to catch steamboats in the middle of the Ohio from Rockport, Indiana. And on one of the trips, both the businessmen each threw down a silver $50. It was the most money he had ever seen. And that just reinforced to Lincoln this sense that there was a bigger world out there, and in this world of opportunity. And so, again, you know, the rivers play this very important role in Lincoln's life. He knew that there was a different world out there than the one that his father had created on the frontier. And but the other thing that he saw in New Orleans that just stuck with him the rest of his life is the scene here.
This is very upsetting.
We used the facade of the slave auction house from a photograph from the 1840s of a New Orleans slave auction house. And the thing to know about slavery is that there are 2 aspects of brutality. The physical aspects, which you'll see on the interior wall, which show the scars from being whipped, and the reproduction shackles. But probably the most devastating aspect was the psychological brutality of families being ripped apart and sold to different masters.
Yes. In this case, the mother and father are taken away separately, and the child
is up there being sold
as my goodness.
His parents are being taken away. This was what Lincoln often referred to as our national sin.